Hey everybody, Steve Colescott here for the Iron Subculture podcast, covering all aspects of powerlifting, bodybuilding, and strongman training and nutrition.
Come on, Steve!
I love the feeling of being strong. I love being powerful. I love being big, but I just love being in the gym.
I envision the weights laughing at me, and it kind of makes me angry. We work out very hard. We work out as heavy as we can, and we train with intensity.
I still have a lot of fire inside.
Killing instinct inside you, that will to win.
This episode includes an interview with author and coach Josh Bryant. Talk a little bit about your background. First off, give us a list of the books that you've written thus far.
Okay, so far of what I have published, and actually look behind me to make sure I don't miss anything. At the Metroflex power building book, I have a book called Bench Press to Science. It's about kind of the science behind what I do with bench pressing. It's mainly more references rather than programs. There are a few programs in there. I have Jailhouse Strong, which is basically a no-frills system of what inmates use to get bigger and stronger, evolving from body weight to weight training and unarmed combat stuff. I have Jailhouse Strong, the Successful Mindset, which is more about, I co-authored all these Jailhouse Strong books, my best friend Adam Chia. That one's more about the mindset of a champion. Okay, then I have Jailhouse Strong Interval Training, which is all about just different interval workouts. So if you're like, look, this would be like sort of the opposite of what you're talking about, a piece of literature. This is more if you just want like no frills training you can implement today and a ton of interval programs, that'd be the book for you. I have another one called The Size and Strength Blueprint I wrote with my brother. And again, that's all programs ranging from like 12-week programs to like individual arm workouts. Like say if a bodybuilder's stuck in a rut and just wants a workout to do that day, we have both in there. I have then Built to the Hilt, the bodybuilding version, which is based mostly on muscle hypertrophy. Obviously, there's going to be some overlap with strength or hypertrophy either way, but that one's geared more towards the aesthetic enthusiast. Then the new Built to the Hilt Strength and Power Edition, which is more toward, which purely towards someone that wants to get stronger, primarily powerlifting, strongman, or any type of strength athlete. Then I just helped co-author with Fred Hatfield one of the ISSA courses, and we're working on another one. And right now we're working on a grappling edition of Jailhouse Strong, which will be strength training for grapplers. So got about 7 or 8 published and some more in the wings right now as we speak. So
very impressive. Author is one of the feathers in your hat. Your background is a lifter. You're a modest guy, so I'll throw these numbers out. 909 raw squats, 620 raw bench press, and you hit 600 at just 22 years of age. 810 raw deadlift. And
the squat, let me take it back. The squat was at a USPF meet, so I had an old single ply suit on, so I don't want to take credit for something that's not true. So
okay.
Yeah.
And then you won the Atlanta Strongest Man in America competition.
That's probably my most proud one, because I think that those events they had, if not, I know strongman in the sense of what people think about who can move with weight and all that, but if you just want to find out who has the most strength and not attach it to a particular discipline, I think the way the Atlantis people had it set up, that was a very good test. Mm-hmm. There was no way, there was no kink in your armor that wouldn't get exposed somehow.
Okay. The other thing you've got going on is you're a trainer of a lot of top strength athletes. Can you list some of the people you've trained?
Yeah, I mean, we could go, Jeremy Hornstra, Brandon Cass, Orlando Green, Al Davis, Chad Wesley Smith, all sorts of people. Even Ed Cohn on bench press before. I mean, I should know that right off the top of my head, but quite a few.
Okay, and some bodybuilders as well?
Yeah, that's going to be easier because the list isn't quite as long, but of the ones you guys would know, Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, Corey Matthews would be probably the 3 top ones you know. But let's take a step back there. That is sort of, I think how I ended up with some of these top-level people is they saw, like at Metroflex and stuff, if I'm getting people that that didn't have great genetics, they're deadlifting over 700, someone like Johnny Jackson's thinking, okay, what can he do for me then? If he's got this guy that wasn't, so I think a lot of times as a trainer, you got to keep that in mind is you don't know who's watching. And someone that's smart with good genetics knows that if you can get someone with average genetics, good results, you're probably going to, obviously have to train people differently. We're probably going to be able to handle someone with great genetics differently, well too.
On top of those three things, I think the fourth thing that I'd have to throw in there is that, you're a really great guy, and everyone speaks well of you. And the personal story I have is one of the athletes you trained was reporting back to you how I was doing in the meet, and then you sent me a nice email. So it's kind of cool that you're looking out and giving some positive encouragement to everybody, and that says a lot.
I try to be. That's what I'm saying when you ask me who I train. I'm not trying to think. I could have rattled off 10 times that number of people on that caliber, but I'm not trying to make it like an ego thing of like, the way I look at it is I'm trying to get people results. And if you either care about people or you don't, and I care about people in general, regardless of lifting. So I take an interest in people regardless of their level.
Let's talk about the original copy of Built to the Hilt. What brought that? What gave you the idea to do that book?
Actually, I would say Sal Ria, the owner of ISSA, kind of, I don't know, because I had talked about ISSA, about doing a course for bodybuilding. And then I talked to him on the phone. He got super excited about it. And then, so he kind of gave me the idea. And then he hooked me up with another guy named Bob Wolf that I talked to about it. And then I talked to Fred Hatfield about it. And I had never talked to Fred. And Fred was like super encouraging and helpful. That's why the series dedicated to me wasn't only like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Talk to me and tell me how it goes. I'm interested. It's like he started sending me like hundreds of resources to really like super helpful. And then for the bodybuilding edition, I actually proofread everything too. So that's kind of why it's like that big of a group of people to get me motivated, because it's one of those things, if you've written a book, it's one thing, but to do one of that size, I mean, I don't want to sound like weird here, but I was in like some almost like alternate universe when I was doing it. Like, I remember certain nights, I would wake up like the next morning and stuff and thought, 30 minutes had gone by. It was just one of those times when I was in the zone, and it was just like that. Everything just clicked, and talked to all those guys. They encouraged me, and months later, it's like I kind of came up from I had to get it done before my son was born, and I got it done like a week before that, and it worked out.
I'm going to be honest with you, not only was that book great, but I think it got all the other fitness-related books and kind of made them, if people come out with stuff, they have to kind of jump up to a higher level because of what you've done with that book.
Like a rising tide kind of brings up all parties, yeah. It's funny with books like, like there's some people that will write books that are like 20 pages and stuff and sell them on Amazon. They're they could be pretty well known, but it doesn't fool people, because if you look at the rankings, eventually the cream's going to rise to the top. And you may have gotten great results from yourself, but if you put some ebook together, a bunch of pictures of 20 pages, I don't think it's going to help a lot of people.
And on social media, people find out pretty fast that
yes.
It's a poorly done project.
100%.
I think a lot of people, they might not realize it's not a copy of the original version with 10 to 15% new stuff added. It's a whole new book.
A whole new book. I've done a lot of books that way. So the Jailhouse Strong 2, it's kind of like a series, and I'm not even saying like there's market research to say this is the smartest way to do it. It's just kind of like, like that's more like the science-based kind of like intellectual, where the other one's gonna be more like just like the aggressive, I want some history and I want how to do it now type thing, which I think I think both are great.
Mm-hmm. One of the areas I really enjoyed was the history aspect of it. What do you think they have to gain from looking back, 4 or 5 decades and learning what has happened to develop powerlifting as it is?
Well, it goes back even further. If you look at the history there, we're going back 4,000 or 5,000 years. There was like paintings in various countries and stuff of women lifting barbells and stuff that I had found.
One of the sections I really liked, you talked about deload, and you had a lot of Fred Hatfield's influence on there. Can you share
Sure.
some of the basics that powerlifters need to keep in mind for maximum strength gains with deload?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. So I've noticed, like you said, to pin me down for one recommendation, I'd say about, you want to keep the weights more in the 70-75% and cut the volume down to about 2/3 or so. But I have had people that don't do well with that. So that what will happen is, for instance, when they deload, if they go lighter on the deload like that, like when they come back, they feel like they're starting lifting all over again. So what I do with them is, what Olympic lifters do is they do usually a higher intensity, lower volume deload. So like, like they say they're going pretty heavy for 3 sets, they might do it for 1 or 2, but keep the weight heavy. So I've done that as well too. So, but powerlifting, you can get away, I think, with more of a deload because it's less skill based. I mean, because like, let's face it, like Olympic lifting is so skill based. There's nobody at the top of Olympic lifting that looks like they don't really train it. They all look precise. Everybody that's in the top few percent looks beautiful. We could go through a list here and just talk about powerlifters with crappy form that are at the top somehow. So it's not as, I mean, obviously you want to perfect your technique and skill, but it's not to the same extent as Olympic lifting. So, because I mean, you'll have people, I took 3 weeks off, and I've heard people post on the internet, I took 3 weeks off and I should have deadlift PR and stuff, and that doesn't really happen like with complex things like snatches.
Mm-hmm. Looking back, who are the lifters that historically that you've learned the most from?
The people I looked up the most to was definitely Kazmaier and Ed Cohn. I've learned from Kazmaier. I've had a chance to talk to him, but I don't know him personally as well. But I've definitely learned from him. Definitely Fred Hatfield and Ed Cohn would be the two lifters I've learned the most from, for sure. Then I've learned a lot from Charles Poliquin. I learned a lot from the people that started me off early on, Steve Hall. I mean, because he's no longer with us, but he would, it was real basic, but it worked, and he was pretty far ahead. And then another guy named George Brink, and then another strongman named Ode Hagen. You know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
So trained with him for a few years. So most of the people I've learned from like this, I've actually kind of know them too. It's not just like I've read their book and took some notes. I've actually like spent time, like Fred Hatfield and I do a seminar together about once a month, every 6 weeks or so. So we always, hang out and talk and stuff. So it's all pretty good stuff there. But yeah, I'd say Ed Cohn and Fred Hatfield would be the two most.
As a trainer, how do you feel that your methods differ from that of other lifters?
I think simply the fact that I'm not trying to adhere to a method, because some people come out with their own methodology and try to make everybody use it, where I go in there with the opposite approach. I'm going to find out what works for you. So if I'm going to train you, we'll have a bunch of questions. I'm going to see the information I can divulge and design the program so what you need, versus like, I do something this, like, let's say I do program XYZ. I make a couple tweaks for you, but it's the same. There are people who do that, but that's more like a cult-like mentality of defending an ideology, where I don't care if it's going to, hang upside down doing bicep curls. If it somehow is going to help you, we can do that as long as it doesn't get you hurt. So my main thing is I don't have any adherence to an ideology. It's all about results. That's all that matters.
When you have a new client, do you have like a base routine, and then from there you adjust it and personalize it?
Not even that. I would say it's personalized off the bat, but I could say it'd be closer to base, so to speak, in the beginning, because you don't know anything. But I'm going to take questionnaires, from people and find out information, because a lot of times where some stuff's not even explainable, I can just say, like, if you've done this before and this happened, this is not going to, and I couldn't even probably put it into words, but enough questions where I can see like what's worked for you in the past. Like if, every time, you do dips, like, you feel like you need to get a shoulder replacement, we're not going to include dips, that kind of thing. Or every time you squat and deadlift heavy, in the same week, 3 days apart, you don't fully recover. Like, we're going to have to find some ways around that type of stuff, instead of just, no, this is the way to do it and this is how we're going to do it.
Where do you recommend people order the book?
I don't know of any place to get it except Amazon. I don't know if it's like distributed anywhere else.
Okay. And how do people contact you to take advantage of your training services?
You should go to my website, joshstrength.com. And I'm also on a lot on social media. I have, on Twitter, my name is Josh Strength. On Instagram, it's Jailhouse Strong. On Facebook, I have the Josh Strength Method. I have YouTube, all that stuff. So if you want to find me, I'm not hard to find.
Okay. I recommend people do that. Thanks for talking to us, Josh.
No problem. Thank you, Steve.